In 2005, David Packouz was a 22-year-old man living in Miami who was a licensed massage therapist. Still, he was tired of earning a living by providing massages to wealthy older men. He dropped out of college after just one semester, became estranged from his parents, and was either fired or quit 6 jobs. So his choices were limited. His attempt to invest his life savings in high-quality bed sheets to resell to retirement homes also failed because the owners didn't prioritize the well-being of the elderly residents. One day, while attending a funeral, he reconnects with Efraim Diveroli, his childhood best friend, whom he hadn't seen in years. Efraim lived in LA with his uncle and worked in the arms dealing business. However, his uncle had stolen money. So Efraim left LA and started his own business called AEI in Miami. While spending time together, they stopped to buy some marijuana, but Efraim was ripped off by some thugs near his dealer's house. In retaliation, he pulled out a machine gun from his car trunk. He fired it into the air, frightening everyone away. This action left a strong impression on David, who was tired of being mistreated and admired those who stood up for themselves. The next day, David visited Efraim at his office. He gained further respect for him when he witnessed Efraim posing as an arms dealer to gather intelligence on the contracts his competitors were vying for. Efraim didn't just sell guns online, he also supplied them to the government, and the profits were substantial. As they were friends, Efraim decided to show David how the business operated. The government had a public website listing all military contracts available for bidding. Efraim focused on the overlooked small contracts other companies ignored, knowing that even the most minor Pentagon contract was worth millions. After having lunch with Efraim, David returned home to discover his wife was pregnant. This news made him anxious, as he didn't think he could provide for a child. So when he met Efraim again, Efraim offered him a job. Initially, David is reluctant to get involved in the idea as he and Iz oppose the war. They even attend rallies and sign petitions. However, Efraim persuades him to change his mind, convincing him that this wouldn't make him pro-war, so David agrees. What he tells Iz, though, is that they'll be supplying sheets to the army, not weapons, so she fully supports him. David spends the next 6 weeks learning about the arms dealing business, searching the government's page for overlooked deals, and communicating with weapon manufacturers from Eastern Europe. They refer to people like them as war dogs, bottom feeders who profit from war without ever setting foot on the battlefield. Efraim has a silent partner, Ralph Slutsky, a local businessman and owner of 14 dry cleaners across Miami. He provides them with funding in exchange for 25% of the company, or at least what he believes is 25%. Ralph is also misled about the actual profits they are making and their intentions. He thinks Efraim, like himself, is an observant Jewish person who wants to protect Israel, so they don't disclose to him that they sell to every side of the war equally. As time goes by, David becomes more adept at the business. He even managed to contact Henry Girard, the biggest supplier to both sides of the conflict for the last 20 years. After an unsuccessful night at a bar where Efraim gets punched for hitting on the wrong girl, they go to a diner where they receive a call confirming that they secured the Beretta deal, which involves providing several thousand Beretta pistols to the Iraqi police in Baghdad. A few days later, David and Iz get the first look at their baby through an ultrasound and find out it's a girl. However, their private moment is interrupted when David receives a call from Captain Philip Santos, who is concerned about new legislation that bans all arms shipments to Iraq from Italy, where the Beretta pistols are manufactured. David is unaware of this new law, but this is a significant deal, so he falsely assures Santos that they have everything under control. Thankfully, Efraim comes up with an idea to resolve the issue. They will ship the pistols from Italy to Jordan, a country they have no problems with, and from there they can send them to Iraq. Later that night, David and Iz host a dinner party, at which some of Iz's friends warn David to be cautious about Efraim, as he is the one who embezzles money from his uncle, not the other way around. Coincidentally, Efraim enters the apartment at that moment, feeling jealous because he wasn't invited. David converses with him privately, and after explaining that it's Iz's party with her friends and not his, Efraim informs him urgently that Jordanian customs have seized their guns. Captain Santos is aware of this too, and he calls them to demand an explanation, threatening to blacklist their company if they don't deliver, effectively canceling their contract. Therefore, they need to find a solution as soon as possible. Their conversation is overheard by Iz, who panics when she finally learns her husband is involved in the arms trade and tells him she feels she can't trust him anymore. Unfortunately, David doesn't have time to resolve things with her because he and Efraim need to travel to Jordan immediately. Upon arrival, they receive no assistance from the embassy, as their flying permit has expired. So after bribing the locals to release their cargo, they enlist the services of a driver named Marlborough, reputed to be the best smuggler in the country, to transport them to Iraq so they can deliver the guns themselves. David is concerned about the safety of such a trip. Still, Efraim reassures him that it will be quick and they'll arrive by morning, so there's nothing to worry about. In the middle of the night, they reach the Iraqi border and the patrols stop them. However, Marlborough easily bribes them with cigarettes, claiming that's also the cargo they're delivering, allowing them to cross without any issues. Subsequently, David and Efraim fall asleep, and when they wake up in the morning, they find the truck has come to a halt in front of an abandoned gas station. While Marlborough refills the gas can and Efraim takes a break, David receives a call from Iz, who tells him she has realized his immense pressure and why he's taken this job. She wants him to promise he'll never lie to her again, which he agrees to, while still informing her he's at the hotel. Suddenly, he needs to end the call because he sees a group of armed insurgents approaching them. So David warns Efraim, and he promptly returns to the truck, starting it with the remaining drops of gas. But they won't last long. There's no time to stop and wait for Marlborough, so they make him run after them until he reaches the truck and refills the tank as they move. The insurgents begin shooting at them, and for a moment, the trio believes they won't survive. Fortunately, they are rescued by the sudden arrival of the American army, who scare the insurgents away. They successfully make it to the military base, impressing Captain Santos by surviving the Triangle of Death. After taking some selfies with the cargo, they receive payment. They are escorted to the airport by a group of soldiers so they can safely depart from Baghdad. This deal has already made them a great deal of money. Still, it has also brought attention to them, causing the company to expand and increase monthly revenue. They purchase matching Porsches and 2 apartments in the same building, and even dispose of all the sheets David bought in bulk. Ralph is ecstatic with his returns and increases his investments, enabling them to grow the company, hire numerous employees, and secure more deals. This allows David more time with his newborn baby, although Efraim appears to become more unstable by the day. One evening, David discovers the army has shared what would later be known as the Afghan deal. This incredibly large order includes staggering quantities like 100 million rounds of AK-47 ammunition. It would be a terrific opportunity for them, so they decide to travel to Nevada and go to Vegas at a convention where manufacturers showcase their latest in warfare. Unfortunately, it's a complete disaster. Even if they could secure such a deal, it would be a logistical nightmare. A small company like theirs can't coordinate dozens of manufacturers worldwide. Later, when David is at a casino playing some cards to distract himself from their failure, he's approached by Henry Girard, a legend among arms dealers. David picks Efraim up, and they meet Henry at a restaurant to discuss the deal over dinner. Henry can fulfill the entire order because he has contacts in Albania. This country spent decades preparing for a Western invasion that never came, so now they're sitting on millions of unused weapons ready to be resold. They're looking to get rid of it, or they'll turn it into scraps so Henry can get it at a low price, and he's the only agent with access to the whole thing. It sounds too good to be true, so Efraim wonders why Henry isn't bidding on the deal himself. Henry confesses he's barred from doing any business with the U.S. government because he's on a terror watch list. This worries David, who doesn't want to work with such a person. Still, Efraim points out to him this is precisely the kind of people they've been buying from and selling guns to all along, so they end up accepting the deal. Or come on, I'll call my guy and we'll set it up. A few days later, they fly to Albania to check on the cargo and are assigned a man called Bashkim as their driver. When they make it to the warehouse, they test the bullets and confirm that regardless of their age, they still work, so they fly back to Miami and make their bid. 5 months pass before they get an answer, but luckily, they win the deal. Before they can even get started, however, the company has to be vetted by the government, so David and Efraim begin falsifying all the paperwork and bookkeeping they never did before today. 2 weeks later, they go to Rock Island to meet with procurement officers from the U.S. military. And they are so nervous about it that they smoke some strong pot before entering the building. The meeting went well, and their paperwork was approved. However, Efraim still gets furious when he hears they were chosen because they underbid the competition, meaning they could have charged over $50 million more. You guys came in $53 million lower than the nearest competition. When David returns home and tells Iz he'll be leaving for Albania for a month, she takes it better than he expects, but that's because she's about to leave for his mother's house with the baby. Is angry because she's found the pictures of David in a wrap, which means he's been lying to her again. Trying to calm her down, David swears that is the last thing he's lied about. Still, Iz reveals she knows about something else, some bags of money he had hidden under the sink without telling her. Seeing as he can't stop lying, Iz leaves with the baby. Before flying to Albania, Efraim gives David a gold grenade as thanks for having sacrificed so much for the company. David presents the partnership agreement he has written to his associates for both of them to sign to ensure everything is legally in place. Once signed, David places a deal in his desk drawer, although Efraim does not seem pleased about its existence. While in Albania, David is again accompanied by Boshkim as his driver. Despite his attempts to reach Iz, she refuses to answer his calls. While preparing the cargo for shipping, David discovers that they have been deceived, as the bullets turn out to be of Chinese origin, which makes them illegal due to a U.S. embargo. After informing Efraim about this issue, they contacted Henry, who said that the situation was now their responsibility and they should have inspected every crate before purchasing. David is now stranded in Albania, attempting to establish new Eastern European suppliers. However, after a few days, Efraim visits him at his hotel and proposes an idea. They could repackage the bullets. Without their original crates, the U.S. would be unaware of their country of origin, and by using fireboard boxes, they would save a significant amount of money on shipping. Although illegal, the financial gains are too substantial to overlook. Boshkem introduces them to his friend Enver, who owns a packing company. They withhold information about the Chinese origin of the bullets and state that they want to reduce the weight of their cargo. Enver agrees to do it for $100,000, an amount they consider insignificant compared to the potential profit of an extra $3 million. On December 8, 2007, they successfully delivered the first 5 million rounds to the Afghan army without any issues. On Christmas, David sees his family through a video call, a joyous moment before the troubles arise. Later that night, Efraim informs David that Henry has imposed a 400% markup and demands that David lead the deal, as he believes they are being cheated. David urges Efraim to reconsider, emphasizing the risk of provoking Henry, who is not to be trifled with, and stressing their substantial financial gains. David also points out the sacrifices he has made by working hard in Albania, away from his family. He believes Efraim is at ease in the USA, sometimes making him feel like they aren't collaborators, but rather superiors and overworked staff. Efraim claims he comprehends and pledges not to take any action, but he swipes the signed agreement from David's desk. It appears Efraim doesn't keep his promise, because a few days later, in the newly arrived 2008, David is abducted from his apartment and transported to the middle of an abandoned area where 2 thugs assault him. Henry threatens him with a firearm, cautioning him that they can't exclude him from his own deal before departing. Now fearful, David decides to return to Miami, so he goes to the warehouse to collect his belongings. Enver informs him he's never been compensated and that he knows why they want to repackage the ammunition. He's also furious because Efraim hasn't answered the phone. David pledges to transfer the funds to him upon his arrival in the U.S. and that he'll return in a week. However, just as he's getting into a taxi, he's approached by Boshkem's wife, who informs him her husband has vanished. No one has heard from Boshkem since then, and his body has never been located. This convinces David that he's never going back to Albania. The first thing he does when he reaches Miami is to meet Iz and divulge every illicit activity he's engaged in for the company. She forgives him when he says he'll leave the arms dealing business and resume his career as a massage therapist. Later, he meets Efraim to inform him that he is resigning and demands his share of the agreement. Efraim feels betrayed and declines to compensate him, even after David warns him that he'll send a lawyer if he doesn't receive his money within 2 weeks. Nonetheless, Efraim isn't concerned because he's destroyed the sole copy of their signed agreement. When David discovers this, he hurls the gold grenade at the window separating his and Ephraim's offices, creating quite a commotion before the flooding. David has reverted to his life as a massage therapist 3 months later. One afternoon, Ralph approaches him and informs him that Efraim regrets what happened. He asks him to intervene. The 3 of them convene at a diner where Efraim apologizes and offers David $200,000, a modest amount. David becomes furious and begins to disclose to Ralph all their illegal activities with his funding, along with how they underpaid him compared to their actual earnings. He also emphasizes that he has evidence of everything stored on his laptop, which could easily incriminate Efraim. However, Efraim remains unfazed, pointing out that David would also face consequences due to his involvement in all the paperwork. The meeting concludes without reaching an agreement. Shortly after, David receives a call from the New York Times requesting an interview about the rebranded Chinese ammo. He feigns ignorance and ends the call, feeling worried as this means the information is now public and could result in trouble for him. After promising to contact a lawyer, he unexpectedly encounters Efraim in the elevator, who also receives a call from the same journalist. Even as Efraim tries to elicit sympathy from David, posing as the trustworthy old-school friend, David sees through his facade. He punches him, realizing their friendship is never genuine and that he's always been a mere pawn in Ephraim's business schemes. As the elevator doors open on the ground floor, they find themselves surrounded by the FBI, who promptly place them under arrest. Despite all the illegal activities and lies told to the government, their downfall was not compensating Enver, who reported them to the Pentagon. This triggered a comprehensive investigation that apprehended Ralph at one of his various stores during daylight, leading him to promptly make a deal out of fear. That meeting with them was all part of his plan, as he wore a wire to record their confessions of their crimes. Efraim is charged with over 70 federal offenses and sentenced to 4 years in prison, while David pleads guilty and receives a 7-month house arrest sentence. Also in 2022, AEI will be able to pursue federal contracts once again. After 7 months of house arrest, David returns to work as a massage therapist. He is taken aback to find Henry as his next client. Feeling apprehensive, Henry assures him that he means no harm and says that if he wanted David gone, he could have already made it happen. Henry apologizes for Albania, citing misinformation, and expresses his gratitude for not including his name in the testimony. David has several inquiries for Henry. He's curious whether their meeting at the blackjack table was a coincidence and wants to know what happened to Bashkim. Instead of responding, Henry offers him a suitcase filled with money in exchange for not asking any further questions. No more questions.